This is CBC Vancouver News.
I don't believe any Canadian should have to spend $4,000 a year to see a primary care provider.
Taking Telus Health to court, why the province accuses the company of violating BC health laws.
This is the beginning of a fight that's going to last a long time.
BC's police watchdog says 3 Mounties could be charged after officers shot and killed an Indigenous man last summer.
Watch out!
And after the chaos of Tuesday's snowfall, some local councillors say it's time for a snow summit. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. A group of victims of an alleged Chinese currency exchange scam want a police investigation into the millions of dollars they claim have been lost. As Eva Yugwen-Senj tells us, the victims were using exchange services that, while legal, operate in an area that may lack consumer protections.
I was furious.
An Dong Pan thought referring his client to a currency exchange business in Richmond was standard practice. Now the realtor says because of that decision, he's out of pocket nearly $500,000 and has little hope of ever seeing his money again.
These are breaking society's rules, and they're breaking the laws, breaking the rules here, and so many victims, they had such bad experience.
Foreign currency exchange businesses are commonly used by Chinese immigrants who need money while their assets are still in China. That's because the Chinese state limits individuals to withdrawing a maximum of $50,000 a year. The exchange business sets the exchange rate with the customer. Then the customer transfers Chinese currency into a designated account in China, and the exchange business delivers the equivalent in Canadian dollars to the customer in Canada. Pan says his client made an exchange deal with an agent working for Zhu Dong Lu and her husband, Jia Hao Dong. They operated a currency exchange in Richmond until January of this year. In a lawsuit, Pan alleges Lu and Dong still owe $431,000 from the deal. According to the suit, after the couple missed the scheduled payments, Pan reimbursed his client the money himself.
Couldn't sleep well. I have nightmares.
Lu and Dong didn't respond to the suit, and a judge ordered them to pay Pan, who says he's yet to receive the sum. CBC News has found at least 9 lawsuits filed against Lu and Dong, which account for millions of dollars allegedly being defrauded. Lu and Dong have not filed responses to some of the claims, but in a reply to 3, they denied any wrongdoing. Last month, a group of 16 alleged victims, including Pan, went to the RCMP detachment in Richmond to ask the police to formally investigate. Now the RCMP says its economic crime unit is investigating the incidents. Foreign currency exchange businesses are legal, but experts say with current regulations, there is potential for fraud and money laundering.
I mean, this is what fraudsters do. They prey on trust. They prey on people in their own community that trust them, or they prey on elderly people who, have grown up in a society where they trust people.
Both the Cullen Commission and the Dirty Money Report into money laundering in British Columbia recommended more provincial oversight of businesses like currency exchanges. The Ministry of Finance said in a statement it is committed to addressing the recommendations. Eva Yugwen-Senj, CBC News, Vancouver.
A battle is brewing over health care offered by Telus in this province. BC's Medical Services Commission has now applied for a court injunction to stop the massive company's LifePlus program. As Mira Baines reports, critics argue it charges patients thousands of dollars for preferential treatment.
Telus Health is a growing wing of the BC-based company. It found a lucrative role providing healthcare services amid the pandemic and the province's doctor shortage. But its LifePlus program has now attracted legal action, alleging it has breached the Medicare Protection Act.
I don't believe any Canadian should have to spend $4,000 a year to see a primary care provider.
Mark Winston complained to the commission about an offer to join LifePlus when his doctor started working with Telus.
I should still be able to see my doctor and have them bill MSP directly without any other costs. So to me, that's a bit of a smokescreen.
Documents filed in court claim a subscription to the Telus Life program costs up to $4,700 a year. The province wants Telus to stop. BC's health minister notes the case centers around the LifePlus program and its membership fees, not Telus Virtual Health.
The legal process will now unfold as it should. The Medical Services Commission will argue its case for an injunction in the coming weeks, and in the meantime, the government will continue its efforts to strongly defend our public healthcare system.
An auditor with the Health Ministry noted in an affidavit there are concerns paying members are potentially receiving preferred access to MSP-insured services provided by LifePlus doctors. Telus argues LifePlus services deal with preventative care and claims the company has not been given a chance to address the issue with the Medical Services Commission.
We have not been given the opportunity to do so. It feels rather political. We welcome the legal proceeding. The matter is in front of the courts.
The BC Green Party wants to know why a review into these practices wasn't made public earlier this year.
The public should absolutely be able to see a publicly funded body's report on our public healthcare system and whether there is for-profit encroachment into that healthcare system.
The Health Ministry says the injunction application is just a first step. Telus has 21 days to file a response and could ask for an extension before any court date is set. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, the forecast is in. It is below freezing in Metro Vancouver tonight, and there is a wind chill. And road maintenance contractors are already preparing for snow during tomorrow's afternoon commute. So after the traffic chaos earlier this week, some local politicians say it's time for a snow summit to try to avoid another big mess. New Westminster Councillor Daniel Fontaine and Surrey City Councillor Linda Annis want better coordination and planning. The snow summit would involve local governments, the province, transit operators, and those road maintenance contractors. Annis left downtown Vancouver at just after 7 on Tuesday. She says she didn't get home to South Surrey until 5 in the morning the next day. The councillors say there needs to be some accountability for what happened. And all that snowfall and the ensuing crashes, as you can see, has led to a spike in calls to ICBC. The insurer says more than 3,500 claims were filed for Tuesday, nearly double the same day last week. With more snow expected, the corporation is urging drivers to slow down and make sure their vehicles are winter ready. BC's police watchdog says there are reasonable grounds for possible charges against 3 Mounties after officers shot and killed a Wet'suwet'en man on Vancouver Island last July. It's news his mother finds relieving and painful.
This is the beginning of a fight that's going to last a long time.
38-year-old Jared Lowndes was shot and killed by RCMP officers outside of Tim Hortons in Campbell River last summer. At the time, police said they stopped him on an outstanding warrant, and he fled, but was stopped when police cars rammed his vehicle. Now the Independent Investigations Office says it's determined that reasonable grounds exist to believe that 3 officers may have committed offenses in relation to various uses of force.
We knew that they had done wrong. We knew that everything that they did that day was wrong. Now we have to wait for Crown and wait for Crown to make their decision.
The IIO is now working on a report for the Crown for it to consider charges in the next few months. A police officer caught on camera repeatedly punching a suspect during an arrest has now been found not guilty of assault. Today, a provincial court judge ruled Kelowna RCMP Constable Siggy Peterzak used, quote, necessary force in the 2020 arrest. This video captured in a downtown Kelowna parking lot shows Peterzak running toward the suspect who was struggling with 2 other officers. He's then seen punching the man in the head at least 10 times while the other officers restrain him. He was charged last April. An RCMP news release at the time said he was suspended with pay. Some international students in BC walked out of class today, angry and worried about tuition hikes at Emily Carr University. As Yasmin Gandam reports, the fees are rising significantly for those coming from out of country.
Whose school? Our school. Whose school? Dozens of students took their anger over tuition hikes outdoors, holding signs reading "Stop exploiting students" and "Education is a right, not a privilege." The protest comes after the university announced plans to raise tuition by 30% for incoming international students and 10% for current ones.
There's never been an increase this high at the university, and there has also never been a vote on tuition this early in the school year. This is happening 4 months earlier than it happened last year.
Paige Aris is a current international student from the U.S. She currently pays $9,000 a semester. She says with rising rent fees and inflation, she doesn't know how to keep up.
It just feels like everything bubbling more to the top, almost as if we're all in a pressure cooker and it's just like slowly building and building before all the steam releases.
In a statement, the university argues the increase is required to continue providing quality education, and the hike is needed to balance the budget as required by law.
We came here with the hopes of building, of creating on this land.
Students from all over the world say an increase like this doesn't just have financial consequences.
I remember how my teacher back in China told me about how America is like the greatest university to attend an art class. But it wasn't good for me because my mental health is not doing so good right now.
It really hurts you because you think you're not really like, you don't see the value of you being here at a point anymore. You just feel used, essentially.
Emily Carr administration was aware of the planned walkout. It says it respects the rights of students to voice their concerns by taking action and the challenges higher tuition payments will create for some. But there are no plans to halt the hikes. Yasmin Gandam, CBC News, Vancouver.
To other news now, the Port of Vancouver is Canada's largest. It has now pledged to be zero emissions by 2050, a lofty goal that few ports around the globe are striving for. But as John Hernandez shows us, some critics wonder if it's even achievable given some of the port's commitments.
The hum of this port patrol boat isn't coming from your traditional fuel.
We're using 100% renewable diesel. And so that's a test or a demonstration that we're doing to kind of understand the operability of that fuel.
The boat still emits fossil fuels, but it has a smaller carbon footprint because it's not pulled from the ground. It's one of the many small steps the Port of Vancouver says it's taking to meet a massive goal.
We have to find a way to get this port to a zero-emission port. That's our vision.
A vision with a 2050 deadline. To get there, the Port of Vancouver has installed these electric cranes, part of its vehicle fleet, now electric, efforts it hopes to scale up in the years ahead.
That really is about an energy transition. It's thinking about how to get different types of increasingly lower carbon intensity fuels and technologies into the port, into heavy-duty transportation.
Few ports across the world have made such a commitment. Still, critics say the goal is undermined by the port's ongoing commitment to liquid natural gas.
We have been advocating specifically to Vancouver to make sure that they're not making any investments in LNG bunkering.
The port has partnered with FortisBC to build an LNG ship fueling station to meet growing demand over the next decade.
It's only furthering our reliance on fossil fuels and continuing this benefit that fossil companies are receiving off the backs of our public health and the well-being of our planet.
But the port calls LNG a transition fuel on the road to cleaner marine fuels.
We need to find what those other fuels and technologies are, but that's going to require expanding electrification, battery technology, distribution of electrical power, conversion to hydrogen where it's needed or necessary. So all that takes more time, more money.
A transition that's only becoming more urgent amid growing global calls to rein in an industry that's one of the world's worst polluters. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
The federal and provincial governments are coming together to help protect Cultus Lake with a new wastewater treatment plant. Almost $10 million in joint funding will go to build a new facility to upgrade collection and treatment of wastewater. The new facility will help manage sediment and remove nutrients like nitrogen to control any algae growth and protect water habitats. The Suwali First Nation will also see a pressurized sewer pipe installed that will help serve its lands.
Oh, strut. Strut, strut, strut.
Showcasing the works of Indigenous designers from across North America. After the break, we're going to take you onto the runway of the Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week. Stick around. And thank you for being here on our commercial-free live stream tonight. We hear a lot of stories about the endangered southern resident orca population that live in BC's waters, but not all whales are in trouble. Northern resident killer whales are doing quite well. Here's why.
My name is Jared Towers. I live here in Alert Bay, home of the killer whale, and
I do a number of things in regards to killer whale research, both here and in many other places around the world. I grew up on the water with killer whales every day of every summer since I was 6 years old. And that was because my family owned a whale watching company here, one of the first whale watching companies in Canada. Working with killer whales is really all I've known. Northern and southern residents are actually very similar in a lot of ways. They fill a similar ecological niche. One of the big differences is that the range of southern residents living where they do, they overlap a lot more with human activities for the most part. And all the associated activity, shipping, and all the associated impacts of that. And so southern residents are faced with a lot more threats within their range. Northern residents, on the other hand, live in a more pristine environment. It's worth mentioning that none of these populations intermingle at all. You know, they've been genetically distinct for generations and generations. That said, they do compete for some of the same resources. They both feed on Chinook salmon. They both prefer and probably only eat fish and large fish. A lot of the salmon that come down the coast and are returning to spawn, it may be that northern resident killer whales have first access to those fish as they work their way down the coast. I think we can be optimistic about the northern residents. Their population size is bigger than it ever has been before. When studies on the population abundance were begun in the early 70s, the population was 1/3 the size it is now. So this population has been growing at an average of about 2.2% per year for the last 40 some odd years. And the southern residents more or less just staying the same. It's pretty special for some of us who get woken up in the middle of the night by killer whales passing our houses, or get to know different families and individuals over the years and watch them make use of their own traditional territories and bring their families back to these areas. And I think that, it goes to show that these parts of the coast are important to these whales and have been and will continue to be for generations, so long as they can make a living here.
Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week is back this year after a 2-year pandemic hiatus. The annual spectacle brings together Indigenous talent from across this continent to showcase their creativity. Our Vincent Papakwash takes us down the runway.
Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week kicked off on Monday, so I came here to find out what it's about, to get to know who's involved, why Indigenous entrepreneurship is so important, but also how to walk a runway. The first show was in 2017. It brings together Indigenous designers, models, and mentees to foster a culture of creativity, support, and entrepreneurship.
I'm happy that people are getting creative. I think as Indigenous people, we're just naturally creative, and I feel like it's pretty normal.
I think about how our identities are really represented in how we choose to clothe ourselves. So yeah, I think it's a really important art form.
It's not just designers and models who feel a bond with this event. The Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week Mentorship Program welcomes Indigenous youth interested in all areas of the fashion industry, and some models turn into mentors.
Yeah, I do backstage, I give tips, and actually on the first day somebody did ask me for some advice because they said I looked really calm and they were feeling a lot of the energy.
So I've been mentoring. This is the reason why actually Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week exists. It started off as a mentorship program back in 2014. these young people that I'm mentoring are mostly Indigenous youth in foster care. I worked with like Amber for a very long time. A lot of these kids who are hitting the runway I've known since they've been like 10, right? And they're like 25 now. So just watching that intergenerational like mentorship happening. I'm getting mentored by Pam Baker. I'm mentoring them, and they're mentoring these other really young ones.
The world of fashion can be an intimidating place, but that's not the case here. So, what does it take to walk a runway? Can you teach me what that is like?
Yeah, Vincent, you're gonna stand there, you're gonna strong pose. Yes, like that, all right. And then I'm gonna get you to walk towards me. Yeah, oh, strut, 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 strut. Nice. And I'm gonna get you to stop right here. Right there and stop, strike a pose. Yes, 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 and then walk back. That's right, that's right, that's right. Looking good, I should get you on the runway.
For this community, the culture of fashion and support doesn't end when Fashion Week wraps up. It's lived and breathed every day. Vincent Papaquash, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now that is a turn. Well done, Vincent. There's a live shot of Canby Street in City Hall. It is cold out there, -2, feels like -7 with that wind chill. More snow is in our forecast. Kuljeet Kaila has your BC-wide weather picture after this.
The community of orcas that hangs out between Victoria and Washington State is the world's most studied, watched, and urban. Now, Canada's Committee on the Status of Endangered Wildlife says they are also the whales whose survival is most uncertain.
Well, endangered is sort of the highest level of alarm you can go to. It's telling us that there's something seriously wrong with this population, and if something's not done, we could well end up losing them.
6 years ago, there were 99 orcas in the southern population. Now there are 78, a decline of 20%. No one knows why, but here's a clue. J18 is a young male who died of a massive bacterial infection in an abscess. Now the orcas are among the most contaminated marine mammals in the world. The southern population has 2 to 3 times the levels of PCBs and dioxins as the belugas of the St. Lawrence. Did toxins kill J18?
This kind of effect is not inconsistent with the contribution of something like a PCB. PCBs and dioxins are very typical contaminants that affect the immune system. They make animals weaker, more vulnerable to infections.
What else? Lack of fish, harassment by whale watchers, underwater noise.
And whether this noise caused by everything from cruise ships to tugboats, fish boats, whale watch boats, all contribute to an incredible amount of noise underwater that may be affecting their ability to find prey through their echolocation, their sonar system.
The population of orcas near northern Vancouver Island is also at risk. Its status threatened. Yet Paul Spong, who has observed the whales for decades, is actually pleased by the new listings. He believes it will encourage the United States to list the southern population under its Endangered Species Act.
In Canada, we don't have too many direct consequences that flow from a listing like this. But in the US, there are direct consequences, and things will have to be done.
Even in Canada, the listing should mean an orca recovery team will be set up. But with the causes of the decline still a mystery, just what the team can do is uncertain. Eve Savory, CBC News, Vancouver.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back. Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Our BC-wide weather forecast now with Kuljeet Kaila. Kuljeet, if you ventured outside today, and we know some people did, it was chilly.
It's so chilly. I actually hit some black ice on my way home from work yesterday. So conditions very cold out there, and that is going to continue for almost all of BC. All these warnings still in effect for high winds, cold temperatures, especially for coastal BC. And of course, closer to Dawson Creek on the border of Alberta as well, getting very cold. Just to give you an idea, for Vancouver tonight will be -12 with the wind chill, not the average temperature that we're used to this time of the year, usually sitting around 7 degrees. So gives you an idea of just how cold it is. 60% chance of flurries coming in for Friday. Some sunshine for the weekend, but very cold temperatures across BC. Here's some averages for this time of the year. And here's what's actually happening today in Prince George. -21 when they should be at around -2. So it's cold across BC, and that is going to continue for tomorrow. We're going to see -18 for Prince George, under some sun and clouds and some flurries. -24 in Dease Lake, and -10 in Kelowna, under some sunshine, cold temperatures, and a little bit of sun for the Okanagan and the southern interior. For the lower mainland and for Vancouver, we're going to see this chance of flurries for tomorrow. Sunshine straight through till Monday, and the next dose of precipitation will be early next week, and that will come in the form of some rain, and we'll be sitting at around 0 degrees with the overnight temps. Dan?
Good idea to stay inside if you can. Thanks very much, Kuljeet.
You're welcome.
Food banks across this province are struggling to keep up with demand. At Loaves and Fishes on Vancouver Island, though, it's all about taking the burden of food off the plate for those in need.
My name is Alex Council. We're here at Loaves and Fishes Food Bank in Nanaimo. We're here for people that need food help in Nanaimo, but also broader across Vancouver Island as well. This year, we've definitely seen people come back to the food banks. We've opened more locations for people to get food, and there's a lot of people coming to the food bank.
We don't close. We do that 7 days a week, 364 days a year, and we have 30 partners currently. About 85% of the food we recover is perfectly good for people to eat. There's nothing wrong with it. By giving free food to all the other organizations and Indigenous communities, they can take the money that they would have spent on food and they put it towards the programming they do best. So it's great that but that's kind of why we only do food. We don't have nutrition programs, we don't have a soup kitchen. We do food because by pushing it out to those people, they're already experts in this. We don't need to be redundant and take on what they're already doing. So our biggest pinch right now is space. We can't be a food bank, we have to be a food pipe. You have to pipe it because we have so much coming in. There's more food coming every day. So the thing that makes us a little bit special is that we actually need people to take the food. So the idea is to have a circular food system where food waste is diverted and people have enough to eat. Right now, we're doing around 300,000 pounds a month worth of food coming through this warehouse.
I think the community embraces us. We get a lot of community support, a lot of individuals that donate, a lot of individuals that volunteer as well. So I think the community embraces Loaves and Fishes and loves what we do. If you'd like to volunteer, if you'd like to donate even $25, if you'd like to donate a little bit of food, it all adds up and it all makes a difference.
And a reminder, tomorrow we here at CBC British Columbia are hosting our annual Food Bank Day. We will have special programming province-wide on CBC Radio 1 and CBC Listen, and of course raising money for Food Banks BC. If you want to give now, and we'd love if you would, you can go online to that website, foodbanksbc.com, and please give what you can. That is your late news for Thursday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news anytime, check our website, as you do, cbc.ca/BC. As we mentioned, Food Bank Day begins tomorrow morning on the early edition on CBC Radio 1 at 5 o'clock and running all day. Again, please give whatever you can. Good night.